Blah. At least it's almost gone. Hi, and welcome to Quilt Meets World, where we have adventures in piecing and joy. I'm Russ, coming into my sewing room. Pink eye. I had my physical last week, and my doc was going through a recap of the recent things sent to him from other docs. And when we got to my eye, I told him, the school nurse told me to only fill the prescription if it got worse. And he said, I would have filled it immediately and started using it. And I was like, oh. So what I'm hearing is I need to go fill it on my way home. Gotcha. Basically, he suggested it's probably pink eye. Not obviously certain which form of it. But I managed to, go pick up the prescription on my way home. And things have been improving, so I don't know if it's the eye drops improvement or whether it's just natural course of things. There's a little bit of the pink still remaining in the eye. I've taken some pictures. I'm not sharing them, don't worry. But at least it's not hurting, because that was the worst part a week and a half ago when all of this started was it hurt. The rest of my physical went fairly well. We went through the gambit of everything that's gone on, and I got pretty much an acceptable bill of health. Here in the sewing room, though, it was a little bit of a rocky week. I don't know if you noticed any changes, but, it's been a little busy. Saturday for my 11sies live, I started on the sewing pieces of one of the graduation quilts, the ones that I need to have done for next year. It was a boring sew because I was just making a whole bunch of strip tube units, which with two fabrics, a strip tube is just up, down, up, down. But it was fun to chit chat with everybody. Thank you for everybody who comes and joins in with me. You guys make it just so much fun. So I got those done. I've got other stuff that I need to get finished cutting. And hopefully, I'll be able to get a lot of good motivation on this. All of the short strips, which are cut from fat quarters, are sewn. And I do have to cut... I actually have to cut and sew the long strips, because there's fat quarter strips and there's full width of fabric. I found an older printout of the pattern where I took some notes, and I was like, I probably should be doing this number of strips for the accent. So I got to see if I have enough cut of the background, or if I need to cut some more, or if I'm just going to deal with a centerfold. Not to be confused with a centerfold, but, that's more of a Jay Giles Band joke. Sunday, I spent the day pretty much organizing and rearranging a few things over here. Things you aren't generally privy of seeing, but trust me, they exist. I am still trying to find all the triangles I cut for the second graduation quilt. I did the cutting of those 2 years ago almost. I have extra fabric if I need to make a few more triangles, but it's frustrating knowing that some of them are missing. They're probably in the bucket the bin that everything is in. I just got to remember where I put the bin. I've shifted things around many times over the past couple of years, so it may have been put into the kitchen area for the bin. Looking for that. Hopefully I'll find that this week. Also, with some of the organizing here, I had a few more finished quilt tops to the Russ needs to get on the long arm pile. That pile is just growing and growing like crazy. So there either needs to be more hours in a day or more days in a weekend for me to really start catching up on that. I generally try to avoid doing some of the stuff while Riley's around because she doesn't seem to like the sound of the long arm. She will go upstairs and kind of hide when the long arm turns on. So I don't know whether it's just the constant poke, 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 poke of the stitching of the sewing machine that she's not a fan of, or whether it just startles her that there's, things moving on their own, or if there's something in the noise spectrum that I can't hear and she can. I may try to install an app to see if that might be it. Because if it's a noise, well, I still can't fix that either because it's a long arm. So, yeah, it's been, kind of crazy here and there, but that's not the most effed up thing that's happened this week. And I apologize for my language. So, this is it's both funny and terrifying if you start to think about it. Yesterday, a coworker and I were coming back from lunch, so there's just different buildings on campus. We left the building with the cafeteria. We were walking back to the building that we work in, and there was a group of folks standing in front of the door to get in. And we're like, why are you just congregating? And they're like, door's not working. And I'm like, okay. They apparently like a circuit breaker or something flipped, and that caused something to shut down with the badge swipey technology stuff. But it gets worse. So the doors wouldn't open from the inside either, which, that kind of sounds bad. Security was just like security was on the inside. We were on the outside, and we can't do anything. And we're like, that sounds pretty dangerous, because that meant that people were trapped in the building. We were kind of trapped out the building. In the event of an emergency, people wouldn't have been able to get out the front door or the side door or anything. And emergency personnel wouldn't have been able to get in the door either. So that kind of seems scary. And I think for the first time, I felt truly uncomfortable at work. I mean, we've had lockdowns, we've had various other odd events. We even had a tornado drill one year. And I was just not tornado drill, tornado in the area. We also had tornado in the area before I started working there, but that was when my wisdom teeth were out. That's fine. We did manage to get back in by gaining access to the parking deck. So we had to go 3 different ways to get into the parking deck, and the visitor entrance door, apparently, that one doesn't get locked during the day because, if you have a visitor, they got to be able to get in. So we were able to get in there, upstairs, back to our desks, and my manager goes, "We're going home. We're not dealing with this mess." And I was like, "Okay, you say so. Not arguing." My manager, he had to exit through the parking deck because he walks. So we packed up our stuff. We had to get into the parking deck again. And then he had to basically walk down the parking deck out to the street area and then back up so that he can exit and then get his way to the MARTA station. I managed to get out the deck easily, and we didn't have any real issues, exiting through the gate that we have and everything. But yeah, that was just a little startling because you kind of expect doors to work. I mean, I could get the whole idea that, in the event of a power outage or something, people can't get in. That makes sense. Some sort of power outage and people can't get out, that seems a little worse. So, other than that, it's been a pretty chill week. How did your week go? this weekend is going to be a little bit of a busy one. Saturday for my 11sies, I'm going to be continuing work on the graduation quilts. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to be sewing the accent strip tubes or if I'm going to start working on blocks, specifically block B in the pattern, if anybody is trying to sew it. We'll see what ends up, getting cut over the next couple days, because both of those require cutting for me to work on those. And heaven knows I am not cutting half square triangles on camera. On Sunday, I will be hosting another session of Sewing Shenanigans. For those of you who don't know, this is a free event that is on Zoom only, not broadcast to YouTube. Nobody is going to know that you are in it except for the handful of us who are in the Zoom. It's just, a bunch of friends. We're sewing together. We're enabling each other. We're chit-chatting, always keeping it positive. I do have the link down there in the description, down there. If you're interested in joining, I'll also have it on my live this weekend. And, everyone who is on my mailing list got the link emailed directly to them the other day. So they were the first to know. We welcome new folks. So if you haven't joined in one before, come on down and enjoy yourself. Like I said, it's always a blast, and we love having new people. Anywho, I think that is going to be about it for today. It kind of felt like a little bit of a short video, but sometimes my life is boring until you get locked into the building. Sharing my shenanigans with you is definitely the highlight of my week. I mean, what else am I going to be doing? Rubbing my eye on every surface out there to infect everybody else? That sounds like too much work. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy what you're seeing. That's the easiest way to get YouTube to suggest me to other folks out there. Of course, you can do that yourself by sending this video to your friends or anybody else that you think might enjoy it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and an awesome week. Until next time, stay happy, and remember, always measure your life in love.